The air in our kitchen in Oak Haven, Pennsylvania, was thick enough to choke on. It wasn't the smell of the pot roast cooling on the counter. It was the suffocating weight of 3 years of silence, punctuated by whispers I wasn't meant to hear. I looked at Sarah, my wife of 12 years, as she stood by the mirror in the hallway, adjusting a pair of earrings I hadn't seen before. They were gold, teardrop-shaped, and far too expensive for our current budget. We were supposed to be saving for Maya's braces, but Sarah's priorities had shifted long ago. "I'm going out tonight, Elias," she said, her voice devoid of its usual warmth. She didn't look at me. She looked at her reflection, checking for flaws that didn't exist, her fingers tracing the edge of a jawline that had become increasingly hardened by secrets. "It's Tuesday, Sarah. The girls have a recital tomorrow. We agreed we'd stay in and help them practice," I replied, my voice steady despite the hammer strike of my heart against my ribs. I felt like a ghost in my own house, a man whose presence was only tolerated when the bills came due. She finally turned, her eyes cold. "I need air. I need to feel like a person again, not just a mother or a wife. I'll be back late. Don't wait up, and don't make that face. You know I can't stand it when you look at me like I'm a prisoner." I felt a snap inside me, a clean, sharp break of a cord that had been fraying for months. It wasn't just the earrings or the late night. It was the total disregard for the life we'd built. "If you walk out that door tonight, knowing what's at stake, don't bother coming back." "I mean it, Sarah. If you go, this house is closed to you. Aro, I'm done being the safety net for your disappearances." She laughed, a short, brittle sound that echoed off the hardwood floors. It was a sound of pure arrogance, the sound of someone who thought they held all the power. Before we go deeper into this story, take a second and hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. She grabbed her designer coat, another gift to herself, and walked out, the click of the deadbolt sounding like a gunshot in the quiet suburban night. The silence that followed was louder than the argument. I sat at the kitchen table, the shadows lengthening across the floor like dark fingers reaching for the remains of my marriage. In Oak Haven, the nights are usually still, but tonight, the wind rattled the window panes of our colonial-style home. I thought about the day we moved in, how Sarah had laughed as we painted the nursery for Maya. Now Maya was 10, and her sister Chloe was 8. They were upstairs, hopefully asleep, unaware that their mother had just chosen a night out over the foundation of our lives. I wasn't a jealous man by nature. I was a structural engineer. I dealt in facts, load-bearing walls, and integrity. When a beam is cracked, you don't ignore it. You reinforce it or you tear it down. For months, Sarah's integrity had been crumbling. Late-night texts, work seminars in Philadelphia that didn't exist, and a sudden sharp interest in her appearance that didn't involve me. Here at Family Secrets and Revenge, we see this pattern often, but experiencing it is a different kind of hell. It's like watching your own house burn while you're holding a glass of water. I checked the Ring camera on my phone. A sleek black sedan had been idling at the end of the driveway, its lights off like a predator in the tall grass. She got in without hesitation. The brake lights flared once, a crimson streak against the darkness of Elm Street, then vanished. I stood up, walked to the front door, and I did the one thing I told her I'd do. I turned the heavy brass bolt. Then I went to the basement and grabbed the heavy-duty security bar I'd bought months ago, but never had the heart to use. By 11 p.m., I wasn't crying. I was calculating. I spent the hours documenting every suspicious transaction from our joint account over the last 6 months. It was a digital autopsy of a dead relationship, which there were charges for luxury hotels in downtown Pittsburgh, high-end bistros, and a jewelry store I'd never stepped foot in. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was a calculated siphoning of our children's future. She hadn't just been unfaithful, she had been a thief. I thought about Sarah's mother, Evelyn, a woman who had always looked at me with a strange mix of pity and disdain. "Sarah needs excitement, Elias," she'd once told me during a Thanksgiving dinner while Sarah was checking her phone in the other room. "She's a butterfly in a jar in this town." I realized then that the jar wasn't the town, It was the life we'd built together. And tonight, the butterfly had flown into a storm of her own making. I opened a spreadsheet. It was my way of coping. I listed every lie, and every date she was late at the office, and cross-referenced it with the GPS data from our shared family car app. The map was a spider web of deception, centered around a luxury condo complex on the waterfront. At 1:45 a.m., the headlights finally swept across the living room wall, bright and intrusive. I watched the monitor. The black sedan dropped her off at the curb. She walked up the path, her gait slightly unsteady, swinging her purse like she didn't have a care in the world. She reached for the handle. It didn't budge. She tried her key. She tried it again, more forcefully this time, the metal scraping against metal. I had jammed the internal mechanism from the inside. "Elias!" she called out, her voice a mix of confusion and rising anger. "Elias, open the door. The lock is acting up." I walked to the foyer but didn't open the door. I spoke through the wood, my voice echoing in the empty, dark space of our home. "I told you what would happen, Sarah. You chose the street. You can stay there." "Elias, stop being dramatic. It's freezing out here. My coat isn't that thick. Open this door right now or I'm calling the police." "Call them," I said calmly. "I've already called my lawyer, and I've already moved your suitcases to the garage. The code has been changed. You're a guest in this neighborhood now, not a resident." Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts so far on this story below. I read every single one. I heard her gasp on the other side. There's a specific sound a person makes when they realize the person they've been manipulating has finally grown a spine. It's a mix of shock and pure, unadulterated indignation. She didn't call the police. And that was my first clue that she had more to hide than I even realized. Instead, she made a phone call. I watched the driveway on my phone screen. Within 10 minutes, the black sedan returned. A man stepped out, tall, wearing a tailored overcoat that screamed, "Corporate Shark." This was Julian Vance, a name I'd seen on some of those suspicious work emails. Seeing him in the flesh, standing on my property, felt like a physical blow to the gut. He was the man she was trading our history for. He didn't come to the door. He stayed by the car, watching with a detached, smug expression. Sarah looked at the house one last time, not with regret, but with a look of pure venom. And then she walked back to him. They drove away, the engine purring like a satisfied cat. I went upstairs to check on the girls. Maya was awake, sitting up in bed, her eyes wide and reflecting the nightlight. "Is Mommy gone?" she whispered. I sat on the edge of her bed, the weight of the world on my shoulders. "Mommy has to go away for a while, honey, but I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." In that moment, I knew the revenge part of Family Secrets and Revenge wasn't going to be about anger. It was going to be about justice and protecting these two innocent souls from the wreckage. The following morning, I was at my lawyer's office before the coffee was even hot. Marcus Thorne was a shark in a three-piece suit, specializing in high-asset divorces in the state of Pennsylvania. He didn't offer platitudes, he offered strategy. I handed him the folder I'd compiled. "She's been busy," Marcus remarked, flipping through the bank statements with a practiced eye. "This isn't just an affair, Elias. This is a systematic liquidation of marital assets. She's been moving money into a shell account registered in her maiden name. Look at these transfers, always under the reporting threshold, always timed with your business trips." I felt a cold chill. "How much?" "Close to 200,000 over the last 2 years. She wasn't just planning to leave. She was planning to leave you bankrupt and broken. She was waiting for the right moment to serve you, probably after the next big bonus hit your account." I realized then that the night out wasn't just a date. It was supposed to be her final exit. She hadn't expected me to lock the door. She had expected to come back, grab the rest of her things while I was at work the next day, and disappear with the girls while I was at the office. My ultimatum had forced her hand early, ruining her clean getaway. In a town like Oak Haven, secrets are the local currency. Sarah had always portrayed herself as the perfect PTA mom, the pillar of the community garden club, the woman who had it all together. I decided it was time to let the truth breathe. I didn't blast her on social media. That's messy and looks bad in custody hearings. Instead, I let the facts do the talking in the places where it mattered. I reached out to the garden club treasurer, a woman named Martha, who had always been a straight shooter. I asked if they had received the $5,000 donation Sarah claimed to have made from our joint account for the new community park. Donation? Elias, Sarah told us the club's account was frozen because of a bank error on your end? We haven't had funding for the park project in months. Hakart, we've been struggling to pay the landscapers. The pieces were falling into place. Sarah wasn't just cheating on me. She was embezzling from everyone she touched. She was a professional pretender. Before we go deeper, I would love to hear your point of view. Tell me what part hit you the hardest in my story and share your thoughts in the comments. Seeing the betrayal reach out and touch the community changed the game. This wasn't just a family secret anymore. It was a local scandal waiting to explode. 2 days later, I served the papers. I didn't send them to her mother's house, where I knew she was staying. No, I served them at Julian Vance's office in the city. I wanted it to be public. I wanted his colleagues, his assistants, and his boss to see the process server hand over the documents. The retaliation was swift and ugly. Sarah's lawyer filed for an emergency injunction, claiming I had illegally locked a resident out of her home and demanding full custody of the children, citing my unstable emotional state. They painted me as a monster, a controlling husband who had snapped. Marcus laughed when he saw the filing. They're playing the victim card. It's the oldest trick in the book, but they don't know about the forensic audit we've started on that shell account. We're going to let them lie in court first. Let them dig the hole so deep they can't see the sky. Living as a single father overnight was a whirlwind. My life became a series of school lunches, braid tutorials from YouTube, and answering the why questions that broke my heart every single evening. Chloe, the youngest, asked if she had done something wrong to make mommy leave. No, never, I told her, holding her tight as we sat on the porch swing. Mommy made some choices that mean she can't live here right now. But you are loved and you are safe. This house is your fortress. I realized that my wife's departure had actually made the house quieter. Not the empty, haunting quiet I expected, but a peaceful, honest quiet. The tension that had hovered over us like a storm cloud for years was gone. The girls were actually laughing more, their play becoming less guarded. It made me wonder how much of her toxicity they had been absorbing through the walls. The day of the deposition arrived like a heavy fog. We were in a sterile conference room overlooking the Allegheny River. Sarah sat across from me, looking radiant in a white suit, playing the part of the wronged woman perfectly. Julian was there too, in acting as her advisor, his presence an insult to the legal process. Her lawyer started the questioning, his tone condescending. Mr. Sterling, is it true you locked your wife out in the middle of the night in freezing temperatures without her belongings, essentially making her homeless? I gave her a choice, I said, looking Sarah dead in the eye, refusing to flinch. She chose to leave. I simply ensured she stayed consistent with her decision. As for her belongings, they were neatly packed and waiting in the garage. And the money? Her lawyer asked, pivoting. You've restricted her access to all marital funds, leaving her destitute. I've protected the remaining assets from being funneled into the Vance Sterling shell account, I replied calmly, sliding a copy of the bank's internal memo across the table. Sarah's face went from pale to ghostly. The name of the account wasn't supposed to be known. Julian shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his advisor persona cracking. What shell account? Her lawyer asked, though he looked like he wanted to crawl under the mahogany table. Marcus stepped in, his voice like a gavel. The one where Mrs. Sterling has been depositing donations from the Oak Haven Garden Club and consulting fees from her husband's engineering firm. We have the routing numbers, Julian, and we have the signatures that clearly match the ones on your own firm's letterhead. The room went silent. This was the moment in every family secrets and revenge story where the villain realizes the ground has vanished beneath them. Sarah looked at Julian for help, her eyes pleading, but he was busy looking at the ceiling. Is suddenly very interested in the light fixtures. He was a shark, and sharks don't stay in bloody water if it's their own blood in the water. I had nothing to do with the garden club funds, Julian said suddenly, pushing back from the table. I told her to keep things legal. I'm not going down for her petty thefts. Sarah turned on him, her voice a screech that broke the professional silence of the room. You told me we needed a nest egg. You told me Elias was too stupid to notice the missing percentages. You took half of that money for your boat. If you were Sarah, standing there watching your ally turn on you in a room full of lawyers, how would you feel? Share your thoughts in the comments. The betrayal was now a circle, and it was closing in on her. Julian walked out of the room without another word, leaving his coat and his mistress behind. He was protecting his career. She was just collateral damage. With Julian's defection and the evidence of financial fraud mounting, Sarah's legal team folded like a house of cards. They knew that if this went to a criminal trial, she was looking at significant jail time for embezzlement and fraud. We negotiated a settlement in a matter of hours. I got the house, full custody, and a structured repayment plan for the money she'd stolen from the children's college funds. She moved into a small, cramped apartment on the outskirts of town. No more gold earrings, no more black sedans. The butterfly had found out that the world outside the jar was cold, expensive, and didn't care about her excuses. Months passed. The seasons changed from the harsh Pennsylvania winter to a blooming, vibrant spring. And I focused on the girls. We planted our own garden in the backyard. No club required, just dirt, seeds, and honesty. I learned that being a father was the most complex structural job I'd ever had. If the foundation is love and truth, the building can withstand any storm. I started seeing a therapist to deal with the years of gaslighting I'd endured. You weren't crazy, Elias, she told me during one session. You were just being dismantled, piece by piece, by someone you trusted. Recovery isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering who you were before the lies. One afternoon, while I was picking the girls up from soccer practice, I saw Sarah. She was standing by the chain-link fence, looking thinner, older, her designer clothes replaced by something worn and faded. She tried to wave to Maya as she ran across the field. Maya stopped. We looked at her mother, then looked at me. She didn't run. She didn't cry. She just gave a small, polite nod, the kind you give a stranger, and got into the car. The bond had been severed by Sarah's own hand that Tuesday night. You can't burn a bridge and expect people to still cross it. Sarah walked over to my window. Elias, please. I just want to talk. I've changed. I'm in a program. There's nothing left to say, Sarah. You said you were going out. You just didn't realize that out meant out of our lives forever. Good luck with your program. I rolled up the window and drove away, not looking back in the rearview mirror. What I learned through this journey with family secrets and revenge is that loyalty isn't a suggestion. It's the currency of a soul. When someone tells you who they are through their actions, believe them the first time. When I had ignored the red flags for a decade because I wanted to believe in the perfect family, I had prioritized the image over the reality. If you were in Elias's shoes facing a situation like this, what would you do? Would you have locked that door or given one last chance? Share your thoughts in the comments. For me, the lock was the kindest thing I ever did for my children. It was the moment I stopped being a victim and started being a guardian. Today, our home in Oak Haven is full of genuine light. The girls are thriving. Maya won the science fair with a project on the structural integrity. Ironic, I know. And Chloe is the lead in her school play. We still have bad days, days where the memory of the betrayal stings like a fresh wound. But we face them together, with no secrets lurking in the hallway. I've even started dating again, slowly. Born a woman named Clara who works at the local library. She's honest, she's kind, and she never goes out without telling me where she's going. Not because she has to, but because she wants to share her life with me. It's a novel concept, a relationship built on mutual respect. Life has a funny way of balancing the scales when you stop tipping them in favor of people who don't deserve it. Sarah eventually faced minor charges for the garden club embezzlement and had to do 300 hours of community service, ironically cleaning the very park she'd stolen from. Julian Vance lost his partnership at the firm when the news of his involvement in the shell account broke. As for me, I'm still a structural engineer. I know how to fix things that are broken, but I also know when a structure is beyond repair. Sometimes, the only way to save the inhabitants is to let the building fall and build something new on the site. Before we go, I want to thank you so much for staying with me through this emotional journey. If this story moved you or reminded you of your own strength, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel, Family Secrets and Revenge. We are a community that believes in truth and justice, and we love having you here. What part of Elias's story hit you the hardest? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay strong and keep seeking the truth.